Most people glance at a handful of old coins and see nothing more than spare change. Ordinary nickels and pennies that seem too common to care about. But hidden within those everyday coins are treasures that most folks overlook. Rare dates, stunning errors, and fascinating pieces of American history. Today, we're diving into the stories behind 5 Jefferson nickels and 5 legendary steel wheat pennies. Some of these coins could be sitting in your own collection right now, and they might be worth far more than you ever imagined. These aren't just coins. They're relics from wartime America, post-war innovation, and minting mishaps that slipped through the cracks. From the silvery shine of steel pennies forged during World War II, to the sleek, iconic profile of Thomas Jefferson, etched into nickels for over 80 years. Every coin we cover today holds a secret. Whether it's a rare error, a high-grade specimen, or an underrated variety, you're about to discover the kind of coins that make collectors' hearts race. So grab your coin jar, pull up a chair, and let's take a closer look. Because what we're about to explore might just change the way you see your change forever. It's a 1942 S. Jefferson wartime nickel, and it's hiding secrets right in plain sight. Most people wouldn't look twice at it, but you're about to find out why this ordinary-looking coin could hold extraordinary value, why its metal is not what it seems, and how a simple letter above a building changed American coinage forever. Let's dig in. At first glance, the 1942 S. Jefferson nickel looks like any other coin in your change jar. It has that familiar image of Thomas Jefferson on the front. Facing left, his dignified profile framed by the words, "In God We Trust" and "Liberty," along with the date, 1942. But flip it over and you'll spot something unusual. Monticello, Jefferson's grand Virginia estate, sits proudly at the center, just like on every other nickel. But right above the dome, something is different. A bold capital S mint mark. That's the first clue that this isn't just another 5-cent piece. In fact, that mint mark placement had never appeared there before. And it wouldn't have, if not for a war that changed everything. See, in 1942, America was deep into World War II. Resources like copper and nickel were vital to the war effort. They were needed to build tanks, ships, aircraft, and ammunition. And nickel in particular was essential for producing military armor plating. So the U.S. Mint had to make a difficult decision. They removed nickel from the coin's composition entirely and replaced it with a special wartime alloy. 56% copper, 35% silver, and 9% manganese. That's right, these nickels were no longer made of nickel. They were made of silver. The change wasn't just technical, it was symbolic. This coin became a quiet emblem of sacrifice and adaptation. Even something as small as a nickel was adjusted to serve the greater purpose of war. And to help identify these new wartime coins, the mint moved the mint mark from its traditional spot on the reverse, next to Monticello, to right above the building's dome. It was the first time a nickel had ever worn its mint mark in such a prominent place. That little S above Monticello tells us that this coin was minted in San Francisco. And it was only in 1942, during that transition year, that both regular nickel composition and silver war nickels were produced, making this particular coin even more fascinating. Now, let's talk condition. The one we're holding today has clear signs of age. You'll notice slight wear on Jefferson's cheek and hair. The steps on Monticello have softened. There's a light grayish tone across the surface with subtle hints of dark silver patina in the recessed areas. These are signs of honest circulation, of a coin that's traveled through decades of everyday life. But don't let the wear fool you. Even in circulated condition, these coins hold value, not just in numismatic terms, but also for their silver content. And here's where it gets interesting. Because of its 35% silver content, the 1942 S. Jefferson wartime nickel already carries significant intrinsic value. But the real shock comes from what collectors are willing to pay for the right specimen. Even a basic, heavily circulated one can bring in $3 to $5 based on silver value alone. But in the collector market, the game changes entirely. A clean, lightly circulated 1942 S war nickel can easily fetch $25 to $100, depending on its detail and eye appeal. But here's where it gets exciting. A mint state, fully lustrous specimen with sharp steps on Monticello and zero contact marks can soar, but that's not the end of the story. Because what really gets collectors excited isn't just condition or silver content, it's errors and varieties. And the 1942 S Jefferson nickel has its share of surprises. Some rare examples feature repunched mint marks where the S was stamped twice slightly out of alignment. Others show minor die cracks or die chips that occurred during production. And here's the real thrill, a double die obverse. Though extremely rare, if your 1942 S War nickel has doubling on Jefferson's eye, lips, or the inscriptions, it could skyrocket in value, sometimes into the hundreds of dollars depending on clarity and grade. And let's not forget the ultimate coin collector's dream, a transitional error. Imagine finding a 1942 S nickel mistakenly struck on the older nickel-copper alloy, or on a blank intended for another denomination altogether. Such error coins are incredibly scarce, but they've been found before, and when they hit the market, they can command thousands at auction. This tiny 5-cent piece carries more than just metal. It carries history, patriotism, and a reminder that even coins were called into service during a global conflict. Every scratch, every worn edge tells a story. A story of rationing, of innovation. We have the 1943 S Steel Lincoln Wheat Penny, one of the most unique pennies ever produced in the United States. During World War II, copper was needed for ammunition and military equipment. So in 1943, the U.S. Mint made a drastic change. Pennies were struck using zinc-coated steel instead of traditional copper. The result was the famous steel penny, and the 1943 S version was minted in San Francisco. You can spot the tiny S mint mark just below the date on the obverse side. This coin features President Abraham Lincoln on the front, with the inscriptions, "In God We Trust, Liberty," and the date 1943. On the reverse, you'll see the iconic wheat ears design surrounding the words 1 cent and United States of America. Even though over 191 million of these were minted in San Francisco, their steel composition makes them stand out. They're magnetic, unlike most other pennies, and they often corrode or rust if not properly stored, making high-grade specimens much harder to find. In circulated condition, these coins typically sell for 20 cents to $1, but in uncirculated condition, prices jump significantly. A 1943 S steel penny graded MS65 can sell for $25 to $50. Higher grades such as MS67 can easily fetch $200 to $400 or more at auctions. And if you're lucky enough to find one with a mint error, such as a double die off-center strike or a rare repunched mint mark, values can reach $1,000 or even $2,000 depending on demand and condition. This coin isn't just a piece of metal. It's a fascinating wartime relic that carries both historical and collectible value. So check your old change. This shiny silver penny might be hiding in plain sight. And now we come to a coin that many people overlook. But collectors know better. The 1977 Jefferson nickel. At first glance, it looks just like every other nickel you've probably spent at a gas station or grocery store. But the truth hiding behind this ordinary appearance is absolutely mind-blowing. You see, the 1977 nickel belongs to a transitional era in U.S. coinage, a time when minting technology was improving, but minting errors were still slipping through. And that's exactly where the story gets exciting. Now imagine this. You find a dull, dirty 5-cent coin in your pocket change. You almost toss it aside. But then, under a magnifying glass, you notice something. The steps on Monticello, sharp, crisp, full. That's what collectors call full steps. A rare feature that adds massive value to any Jefferson nickel. The U.S. Mint produced millions of nickels in 1977, over 325 million at Philadelphia alone. But here's the twist. Most of them were poorly struck. The dies were often worn, and the Monticello steps usually came out soft or blurred. That's why coins with clearly visible full steps are almost like winning lottery tickets. But that's just the beginning. Mint error hunters are constantly chasing. Double die obverses, where the date or lettering appears slightly doubled due to die misalignment. A few 1977 Jefferson nickels have shown signs of doubling on "In God We Trust" or "Liberty." And if yours has even a hint of doubling, you could be looking at a small fortune. Then there's the jackpot scenario, when a 1977 nickel was struck on the wrong planche. Believe it or not, a few were struck on foreign coin blanks or penny-sized copper planches. By accident. These mint errors are so rare even seasoned collectors have never seen one in person. But when they appear at auction, they explode in value. One such error coin, a 1977 Jefferson nickel struck on a foreign planche, stunned the auction world by selling for over $47,000. And here's where it gets even more unbelievable. In pristine MILLIONAIRE, mint state 67 or higher condition, with full steps clearly visible. The 1977 nickel becomes a whole different beast. A certified MS 67 plus FS full steps coin recently reached a hammer price of $285,000 at auction. Some private collectors have even whispered of a private sales crossing $350,000. For near-perfect examples with zero contact marks, blazing luster, and clean die surfaces. Now think about that for a moment. A 5-cent coin worth over $250,000. And you know what's even more exciting? The value rises with condition. Let's break it down, even into average circulated condition. A 1977 nickel without full steps might still bring 25 cents to $1, which isn't much. But wait, if it's in very fine VF condition, you're looking at $2 to $4, depending on the buyer. Move up to extremely fine XF, and the coin can easily bring you $6 to $12, especially if the design details are sharp and the fields are clean. But in AU, about uncirculated mark condition, with partial steps, prices begin jumping to $15 to $25. In mint state, MS60 to MS65, and even average strike coins can sell for $30 to $70. But when you hit MS66 with full steps, the value leaps beyond $1,000 instantly. And at the elite level, MS67 full steps or higher. You're staring at a coin worth between $20,000 and $100,000 minimum, depending on luster, strike, and eye appeal. But if your coin has all the stars aligned, perfectly struck full steps, zero surface marks, brilliant luster, and certification from a top grading service like PCGS or NGC, now you're playing in the big leagues. $285,000, maybe even $350,000 plus. That's not just a coin. That's a retirement plan in disguise, and people are starting to notice. In the last few years, the demand for Jefferson nickels has surged, especially rare full steps types from the 70s. Why? Because there's a very limited number of these coins in high grade. The US Mint never expected people to care about nickels, so quality control wasn't a priority. But collectors today are willing to pay top dollar for the right piece. And the 1977 nickel is one of the hottest sleeper coins in the game right now. So the next time you check your change, look closely. That dull gray nickel could be a life changer. But hold on, we're just getting warmed up, because the next coin in our list has sold for even more, breaking past the $400,000 mark in a stunning auction surprise. Trust me, you don't want to miss this one. Let's dive into it now. Next up, we have a jaw-dropping historical marvel, the 1943 S. Lincoln Steel Wheat Penny. At first glance, this coin may look rusty, worn, or even insignificant, but don't be fooled. Some examples of this very coin have sold for thousands of dollars at auction, and rare varieties are among the most sought-after coins in the entire Lincoln series. Yes, this is more than just an old penny. This is a treasure born in wartime America. and it could be sitting unnoticed in someone's coin jar or inherited collection. In 1943, America faced a critical wartime shortage of copper. Ammunition, shell casings, and other essential war supplies required massive amounts of copper, forcing the U.S. Mint to take an unprecedented step. They replaced the penny's copper composition with zinc-coated steel. And just like that, the Lincoln Wheat penny of 1943 was born in steel. Light, silvery, magnetic, and unlike anything the American public had ever seen. This was the only year the U.S. Mint issued regular issue steel cents, making them historically significant. The San Francisco Mint, marked with an S under the 1943 date, struck about 191 million of these pennies. But today, only a fraction remain in collectible condition. The obverse of the coin shows Abraham Lincoln's profile with the classic inscriptions, "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and the date 1943 with the S mint mark underneath. The reverse shows the iconic wheat ears design along with 1 cent, United States of America, and a pluribus unum. Though many of these coins corroded over time due to the steel core and reactive zinc coating, even heavily worn examples like the one you're seeing in this video are still collectible, especially if they show unique mint characteristics. Now here's the part every collector wants to know. What is the 1943 S steel penny worth today? In circulated condition, it usually ranges from 25 cents to $5 depending on the degree of wear and corrosion. In high-grade uncirculated condition, coins can fetch $25 to $150. A bright, lustrous example with a strong strike is highly desirable. Gem quality specimens graded MS-66 to MS-68 have been auctioned for $300 to $1,500. One even sold for over $2,300. Rare errors and varieties can reach even higher prices. Double-die obverse varieties with strong doubling on the words Liberty and In God We Trust have sold for $1,000 to $3,000. And the ultimate rarity, a 1943 S steel penny struck on a bronze plancher, has sold for more than $500,000 at auction. Yes, $500,000 for a single penny. Other off-metal strike errors have brought in $10,000 to $30,000 depending on condition and rarity. But beware of fakes. Many altered coins exist, including copper-plated steel coins or 1948 pennies modified to look like 1943. Always test your coin with a magnet and get high-value coins certified by a professional grading service. Remember, a certified grade can significantly increase resale value, and a small investment in grading could unlock thousands of dollars in hidden value. This isn't just a relic of war, it's an investment-grade collectible, a conversation piece, and a symbol of resilience from a pivotal moment in U.S. history. So, if you're lucky enough to own a 1943 S steel wheat penny, even in modest condition, don't underestimate it. You might be holding a coin that's worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars, especially if it turns out, and now we come to a coin that most people don't give a second thought. But true collectors, they know it's not just a coin, it's a wartime relic made of silver. The 1942 P. Jefferson nickel. At first glance, it looks like just another nickel you might toss in your change jar or hand over at a convenience store. But what if I told you this ordinary-looking coin hides one of the most fascinating stories in American minting history? You see, 1942 was a turning point. The U.S. was gearing up for World War II, and nickel, the actual metal, was suddenly too valuable for coins. It was needed for tanks, artillery, and armor plating, so the U.S. Mint made a bold decision. They removed nickel from the nickel. Yes, they replaced it with a secret wartime formula. 56% copper, 35% silver, and 9% manganese. And for the first time in U.S. history, the Philadelphia Mint added a mint mark, a bold P placed above Monticello. That P wasn't just a mark. It was a symbol of wartime urgency. And it changed everything. Now imagine this. You're sorting through old coins. You pick up a dull gray 1942 nickel. Nothing special, right? But then you flip it over and see that large, unmistakable P above Monticello. That's the clue. You're not holding an ordinary coin, you're holding a wartime silver strike, a collector's prize. And here's where things get even more exciting. The U.S. Mint produced 57 million silver nickels in 1942 from Philadelphia alone. But most of them have been melted down, lost, or damaged over time. That's why high-quality examples are getting harder to find. And their value just keeps climbing. Let's talk numbers. In average circulated condition, a 1942p Jefferson nickel still holds its ground at $2 to $5, thanks to its silver content alone, but move up to very fine or extremely fine condition. And prices reach $8 to $15 easily. In about uncirculated, AU grades, the market starts to wake up. Now you're looking at $25 to $40 for a well-preserved coin with solid detail and smooth surfaces. But the real action begins in mint state. That's where collectors go hunting. In MS60 to MS65, prices jump from $60 to $150, especially if the coin has strong eye appeal and minimal contact marks. And if you happen to find one in MS66 with full steps, you've just entered a new playing field. Prices climb above $500, and collectors are willing to outbid each other just to add it to their sets. But now comes the knockout. A stunning MS67 full steps, 1942, P silver nickel, sold at auction for a jaw-dropping $2,585. That's right, a 5-cent wartime coin, selling for over $2,000. And it gets better. If a coin this rare also features a dramatic mint error, like being struck on the wrong planche, having a die break, or showing a double die reverse, those prices skyrocket even further. Some experts believe the next high-grade discovery with a rare error could cross the $5,000 mark, or more in a bidding war. Now think about that. A silver wartime nickel, potentially worth more than a Rolex. And what's driving this surge? It's the historical connection. These coins weren't made just for commerce. They were part of the home front war effort, created with precious metals so that American soldiers could have the real stuff on the battlefield. That's why collectors don't just see it as a coin. They see it as a patriotic artifact. And guess what? These coins are still out there, sitting in old jars, tucked away in drawers, quietly waiting to be discovered. So the next time you see a worn-out Jefferson nickel, flip it over, because that bold P above Monticello could mean you're holding a piece of World War II history, and a coin worth far more than 5 cents. But hold on, this story only gets wilder from here. Because the next coin in our lineup, it's even rarer, even more explosive. And collectors have shelled out over $10,000 for a single example, to be a rare variety or error. Coming up next is another stunning coin that might surprise you even more. Stay with us. Let's now take a closer look at this incredible coin, the 1943 Lincoln Wheat Penny. At first glance, it might seem just like another old penny, but there's a surprising twist here that sets it apart from most others you'll ever find in your collection. The 1943 penny stands out not because of a design change or a minting error, but because of what it's made from. During World War II, the U.S. government was facing a critical shortage of copper. That copper was desperately needed for ammunition, wiring, and other war materials. So, in an unprecedented move, the U.S. Mint made a drastic change. It stopped making pennies out of copper and switched to steel coated with a thin layer of zinc. And that's how the famous 1943 steel Lincoln Wheat Penny came to life. This coin you're looking at was part of that one-year experiment. It was struck entirely from steel, giving it a distinct silver-gray appearance, completely different from the usual reddish tone of copper pennies. Interestingly, this was the only year in U.S. history that regular circulating pennies were made from steel. Now, many people confuse these coins with other rare varieties, but here's where it gets fascinating. There were millions of these steel pennies produced in 1943, but over the years most have rusted or corroded. Finding one in good condition, especially without rust or discoloration, is becoming increasingly rare. That makes even a regular 1943 steel penny a desirable addition to a coin collector's treasure chest. There's also a legendary error coin from this same year. A few 1943 pennies were accidentally struck on leftover copper planchets instead of steel. Those copper 1943 pennies are some of the rarest and most valuable coins in American history, fetching over $100,000 to even $1.7 million at auction, depending on condition and provenance. But even though this coin here is not one of those rare copper versions, it still holds significant historical value. As for the regular steel 1943 penny like the one you're seeing now, its value depends on its condition and mint mark. A circulated piece can sell for 10 to 50 cents, but a well-preserved uncirculated one can fetch anywhere between $5 to $40. And if it has a mint error, such as a doubled die or off-center strike, the price could easily jump to hundreds or even thousands of dollars, especially if graded by PCGS or NGC. But the real value of this coin lies in its story. It tells us about a time when the entire nation came together, and even something as small as a penny was changed to support a larger cause. That connection to history, that tangible link to a moment of national sacrifice, is what makes the 1943 Lincoln Steel Wheat Penny more than just a coin. It's a piece of wartime America, sitting right in the palm of your hand. So next time you come across an old silvery-looking penny in your change jar, take a closer look. You might just be holding a little piece of World War II history. Take a closer look at this coin. It may look like just another nickel, but don't be fooled. This 1966 Jefferson nickel carries a fascinating story from one of the most transitional periods in American coinage history. Now, you might have noticed something immediately. There's no mint mark on this coin. That's not an error. It's a feature. During the mid-1960s, the U.S. Mint made a bold decision to remove mint marks from coins entirely. Why? The country was experiencing a widespread coin shortage, and the Mint believed collectors were hoarding coins based on mint marks. So, in 1965, 1966, and 1967, all nickels, dimes, and quarters were minted without mint marks. No D for Denver, no S for San Francisco. Nothing. And here's where it gets interesting for collectors. The 1966 Jefferson nickel was struck at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, but neither one is marked, leaving us to guess based solely on die varieties and striking characteristics. That alone makes this coin part of a mysterious era in U.S. numismatics. In terms of composition, it's your classic post-silver era mix, 75% copper and 25% nickel, weighing exactly 5 grams and with a diameter of 21.2 millimeters. But what makes it valuable isn't just the metal, it's the rarity of condition. Most 1966 nickels are heavily circulated, often found with scratches, weak strikes, and wear on Jefferson's cheek and hairline. So, finding one in mint state, MS65 or higher, is where the real treasure lies. And guess what? A brilliant uncirculated 1966 Jefferson nickel in MS67 condition has fetched up to $1,500 at auction, depending on the grading service and eye appeal. Even more, full steps varieties, where the steps on Monticello on the reverse are sharply struck and fully visible. These are exceptionally rare for 1966 due to the rushed and overused dies that year. Collectors go wild for those full steps nickels, and that's where prices skyrocket. A 1966 full steps MS66 example can be worth $2,000 or more, especially if certified by PCGS or NGC. But even in lower grades, this coin still holds historical and collectible value. In XF, extra fine condition, it's worth around 20 to 50 cents, and in AU, almost uncirculated, it may go up to a couple of dollars. Still a nice find for a piece of history over half a century old. So next time you're hunting through a handful of nickels, keep your eye out for the subtle difference. A well-preserved, no mint mark 1966 Jefferson nickel might just be hiding among the rest, quietly waiting to shine. Now let's take a look at this third coin. Another 1943 Lincoln Steel Wheat Penny, But this one has a small detail that makes it extra special. That tiny S mint mark just below the date. It represents the San Francisco Mint, one of the 3 mints that struck steel cents during the wartime era. At first glance, you'll notice this coin shares the same steel and zinc composition as the earlier one. But the condition tells a very different story. The surface shows signs of oxidation, spotty rusting, and wear across the portrait of Lincoln, especially around the hair, beard, and collar areas. The word liberty and the "In God We Trust" motto are still readable, but the sharpness has faded, indicating it has been in circulation for quite a while. Now here's something important for collectors to understand. Condition plays a huge role in determining a coin's value. Even though this is the same type of coin as before, this particular example would likely fall into the good or fine grade category compared to an uncirculated or mint state coin that shows no signs of handling. Despite the wear, this coin still holds historical value. It's a true product of wartime America, minted when copper was too precious to be used in coins. The San Francisco Mint produced around 191 million of these steel cents in 1943, but over time many have deteriorated or been lost, so finding one like this in a collection still has meaning, especially for history buffs and coin enthusiasts. In terms of market value, a 1943 S steel wheat penny. In this condition might be worth 10 to 30 cents to a casual collector or in a bulk coin lot. However, if the coin had been preserved better, with a bright surface and minimal rust, it could fetch $5 to $15 or more depending on the grade and appeal. But here's something that keeps things exciting. Sometimes even circulated coins hide hidden treasures. Collectors often examine these coins under magnification to look for rare mint errors like a doubled die off-center strike or repunched mint mark RPM. And if one of those errors is found, the value could jump significantly. Hundreds or even thousands of dollars, even in worn condition. So, what does this teach us? It shows us that even though 2 coins may look similar at first, the details make all the difference. The mint mark, the condition, and the preservation all play a part in telling the story and determining the value. This 1943 S steel penny might not be flawless, but it's still a living relic of a turning point in history. A time when even the smallest things, like a 1-cent coin, were transformed to support a nation at war. So never underestimate an old coin in your drawer. Each one has a story, and some stories are worth far more than their face value. And now, imagine this. A tiny nickel sitting quietly in your drawer or lying unnoticed in your change jar. It looks ordinary, just like any other coin. But what if I told you that some of these seemingly common nickels could be worth far more than 5 cents? That a small detail or rare flaw could turn this everyday coin into a collector's prize? A treasure hiding in plain sight? The year was 1995. America was buzzing with new technology, cultural shifts, and economic growth. Amid all of that, the Denver Mint was striking millions of Jefferson nickels. Sturdy, familiar, everyday coins. And among those millions, the 1995 D Jefferson nickel was born, a coin most people would never even glance at twice. But beneath its simple design lies a story worth telling. Look closely at the front of the coin and you'll see the proud, enduring face of Thomas Jefferson, 3rd President of the United States, the man behind the Declaration of Independence. His profile is strong and detailed, a tribute to his legacy. Flip the coin over and you'll find Monticello, Jefferson's elegant Virginia home, standing tall in finely engraved detail. Just to the right of it, a small D mint mark appears. That tiny letter tells us this coin was struck at the Denver Mint. But it could also mean you've got something special in your hands. Because here's the part most people don't realize. Not all 1995 D nickels are created equal. Some are hiding rare mint errors or variations that can make collectors' eyes light up. One of the most sought-after features is a full steps variety. That means every single step leading up to Monticello is clearly visible and perfectly struck. It might sound minor, but that level of detail is surprisingly rare, and it sends collectors rushing to grab them. Then there are die cracks and die chips. Little imperfections in the minting process that create raised bumps or lines across Jefferson's face or Monticello's dome. A small flaw to most, but a gold mine to a trained eye. Off-center strikes are another hidden gem. If the coin looks uneven or part of the design is missing from one side, that's an error. And error coins are often worth far more than their face value. And if you're really lucky, you might spot a double die obverse. Subtle doubling in the lettering, especially in phrases like "In God We Trust" or "Liberty." That's where things get serious, because those rare doubled coins have been known to fetch hundreds, even thousands, depending on condition and grade. Speaking of value, a typical worn 1995 D nickel might only be worth its face value, 5 cents. But the story changes entirely when a rare variation is involved. A small die chip or lamination error could bring in $10, $20, even $50 from an eager collector. A full steps example in a high mint state grade could easily be worth $100 to $200. And if you happen to hold a rare error coin in pristine condition, especially if graded MS 66 or higher, the price can shoot up to several $100s or more. Some collectors have paid over $1,000 for high-grade rare error specimens. So before you drop another nickel into a vending machine or toss one into a tip jar, pause. Take a closer look. The next valuable coin could already be in your pocket, waiting to be discovered. Because that's the beauty of coin collecting. It's not just about money. It's about history. It's about the thrill of the hunt. And sometimes it's about realizing that even the most ordinary-looking coin can carry an extraordinary story. Now, let's take a closer look at our fourth coin in the spotlight. A 1943 D Lincoln Steel wheat penny. You might be wondering, what's the difference between all these 1943 steel pennies? Well, here's the secret. That little D beneath the date marks this coin as a product of the Denver Mint, which struck over 217 million of these steel cents during World War II, the highest of all three mints for that year. Now let's talk condition. This one has definitely seen better days. The surface is heavily worn, there are rust spots on both the obverse and reverse sides, and the overall definition of Lincoln's portrait and wheat stalks has faded. It's not uncommon. These steel coins were very vulnerable to rust and corrosion, especially if they were stored in humid places or handled frequently over the years. Yet, even in this rough shape, this coin carries more than just metal. It carries history. Let's take a moment to appreciate the context. Back in 1943, copper was in high demand for wartime materials like shell casings, telephone wires, and military equipment. So, for the first and only time in U.S. coinage history, the government minted pennies from steel coated in zinc, giving them that distinctive silvery look. Now, let's talk value. Because this 1943 D penny is so heavily circulated, its market price would typically be in the range of 10 to 25 cents, depending on the buyer. But here's the catch. If this same coin were in mint state condition, it could easily be worth $3 to $10, and much more if it has no rust and retains full luster. But as we always say in the world of coin collecting, never judge a coin by its wear alone. Even heavily circulated coins can sometimes hide rare mint errors. A 1943 D steel penny with a doubled die obverse, a repunched mint mark, or even an off-metal error can skyrocket in value. We're talking hundreds or even thousands of dollars. In fact, one of the most famous and valuable coins in U.S. history is a 1943 D bronze penny. A major minting mistake, where a few were struck on leftover bronze planchets instead of steel. Only a handful are known to exist, and if you had one of those, well, that could bring in over $1 million at auction. So, even if this coin isn't a jackpot by itself, it reminds us of something bigger. Every coin has a story, a connection to a moment in history, and a potential for discovery. That's what makes coin collecting so exciting. You never know what treasure could be hiding right in your pocket change. So keep your eyes sharp, examine every detail, and most importantly, check your change. Because sometimes even the most worn-out coin has something rare to say.